Man, do I ever feel sorry for Matthew Stafford. He's got the most productive receiver in all the NFL. He's got Cooper Kupp, who leads the NFL in targets and catches, yards receiving, touchdowns, and he's got a really good second receiver in Robert Woods, and he's got a really good young third receiver in Van Jefferson, second-round pick just 2 years ago out of Florida. He's got a really good tight end in Tyler Higbee. And the Rams were rolling. And the last thing that the Los Angeles Rams needed was the biggest diva receiver in the history of pro football. And I'm going to go there because I like Odell a lot. I think he has a good heart. But you want to talk about an ego? You're going to throw that grenade into this mix, that grenade of an ego, Odell Beckham Jr.? You are kidding. Why do you think Deshaun Jackson is no longer a Los Angeles Rams? Because he had caught a mere 8 balls in the 7 games that he lasted. And then he complained, and he complained publicly, and the Rams said that's enough. But the Rams are all about style over substance. They're all about building an NBA-style super team. The more the merrier. Jalen Ramsey, come on down. Von Miller, come on down. Name them, come on down. We'll figure it out. Well, will you on offense? Because here's the harsh truth about Odell. Again, I like him. He's a shadow of himself. He's the most overhyped free agent in the history of free agency because he's had 3 major surgeries in the last 4 years. He's had one injury after another starting in 2014, and it's robbed him of his electricity. So I know the internet believes that Cleveland had a Baker problem. But the truth was the Browns had an Odell problem. What happened when Baker, without Odell, went to Cincinnati and everybody said, look out, here come the Bengals. There went the Bengals. And here come the Browns. 41-16 Cleveland as they head now to New England. I believe they'll win that game. I believe they're going to take off. I believe they're going to become the best team in the AFC because they don't have Odell Beckham Jr. It was not working because Baker became too Odell-centric, too Odell-conscious. They really liked each other off the field, but it never worked on the field. And it's not going to work for the Rams on the field because poor Matt Stafford, MVP candidate, is going to be tormented out of his mind trying to force feed the ball to Odell because you just have to, because he has such a big presence. But the truth is, at this stage and age of his career, just turned 29, a battered 29, he puts on a much better show in the pregame warm-ups than he puts on during the game. He's not as fast. He's not as quick. He's just not as sudden as he used to be. Great hands, but did you see what kept happening with Baker to Odell? Big 4th down plays against the Chargers. Cardinals, drop. That pass that he threw Odell down the middle that could have won the Pittsburgh game. Odell wanted no part of it because he doesn't want to get hurt anymore, and I don't blame him. He's been hurt too often. So, good luck to Matthew Stafford. I feel sorry for you. I feel even sorrier for Odell because he's not going to be happy while he's playing football. He's going to be happy in L.A. because he's got an off-season home, Beverly Hills, Hollywood. He's made for Hollywood. But this Hollywood team is not made for Odell. He doesn't fit because it's just fine the way it is.
VAR, should Odell Beckham Jr. make the Rams Super Bowl favorites?
Well, Vegas says no. I mean, the odds were the odds, and as my man Jonas Knox would say, it lied there like a corpse. No movement, no anything. Went nowhere. So I'm going to sit there and I'm going to disagree slightly. I do believe that he's an upgrade from my man Deshaun Jackson for the simple fact that I think he just has more left in the tank. I think he has more left to prove. And quite frankly, the way that the divorce took place in New York and then now the divorce in, Cleveland, I just think that there's something there for Odell to be able to prove that he's still that, go figure, a 3-time Pro Bowler. Now, some may say it's a popularity contest. I tend to think that you got to be good enough to be considered a Pro Bowler, because I, too, was a 3-time Pro Bowler. I may about myself for 2 seconds. But, hey, nonetheless, this guy can play football. And I think that in all of the dramatics of everything that's been reported, we've lost sight of that. But when I look at these teams, you look at Tampa Bay. They beat Tampa Bay head-to-head without Odell Beckham, all right? They have Green Bay coming up. Those are my 2 favorites in the NFC. So they get a chance to play against Green Bay coming up here pretty soon. I think we'll know better what this Rams team is. I didn't like the fact that they couldn't handle the physicality against Tennessee when they played them, and that left me in pause in terms of how good can they be if they come up against a team in the playoffs that is going to ramp up the physicality of how they play against the Rams. But for me, looking at what Matthew Stafford represents, what the rest of this receiving core led by Kupp could be if they stay healthy and Odell can kind of integrate into this scheme seamlessly, with the addition of Von Miller on that defense, can they become more dominant than they already are with Von Miller? I say absolutely they can. And can you become a more prolific offense in the passing game with Odell Beckham? I say unequivocally yes. So then you got to say that they're going to be a contender. But to say they're outright favorites just because of the addition of OBJ, I think they become better, but I'm not comfortable and confident saying that they are now the definitive favorites to be Super Bowl champs.
Wow. I mean, I think you have to already put them in the mix. They were already close to being favorites without Odell Beckham Jr. and Von Miller. When you look at the way this team is constructed, they're constructed like the great teams of L.A., the Lakers and the Dodgers. We don't want developmental guys. We don't want guys who have to wait and see if they can play or not. We want right now guys. And what the LA Rams have done is they've taken that Lakers and Dodgers model and put it into practice. That's why they went and swiped Jalen Ramsey. That's why they went and swiped Matthew Stafford. That's why they brought over Von Miller. And now the final piece is Odell Beckham Jr. because they wanted star power. And at the end of the day, it's a player's game. And typically the team with the best Jimmys and Joes are the teams that are able to overcome the X's and O's. And when I look at the Rams and I look at this offense right now, who are you going to guard on the outside? You have Odell Beckham Jr., Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods. And even though Odell Beckham Jr. is not the OBJ that we saw in New York, he's still plenty good enough as a number 2 or whatever it is, the role that they want him to play. And so it is about giving yourself enough ammunition that when you get into the playoffs, if you need a big game, somebody can step up and make it happen. We saw it with the Buccaneers when Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski gave them a boost in the playoffs. It's not about him being a dominant player throughout the regular season. It's about breaking him out just in case you need him in the postseason. That's what OBJ can do for this Rams offense. And with Matthew Stafford basically transforming this offense from the movement-based passing scheme that it always had been under Jared Goff with all the play action to now being more of a traditional drop-back scheme. It's more empty, it's more spread, it's more get the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands and let him go to work. I think this is a really nice fit once OBJ continues to recover from the ACL injury that really has plagued him throughout the season as he's trying to knock off the rust.
I do like Bucky's point about L.A. being a star town. You know, you could argue that Odell to the Rams is a bigger deal for TMZ than it is the Rams. You know, Odell is a celebrity. He ain't much of a receiver at this point. We know that from the stats, right? First 3 years, Bucky, first 3 years, 35 touchdowns. Last 4.5 years, 16.5 touchdowns. A lot of injuries. And, you know, to LeVar's point about the Pro Bowl status of Odell Beckham, I woke up this morning early, looked at the calendar. I said, boy, Odell Beckham Jr. is relevant. Cam Newton is on the Panthers. And the Warriors have the best record in the NBA? What, is this 2016? What is going on here? Because, LeVar, I know you love to hype Odell's creds being a Pro Bowler, but he hasn't been a Pro Bowler for a while, okay? I don't see how a number 3 receiver on a team, and Bucky articulated that's what he is, after Kupp, who is arguably the best receiver in the league, leads the league in receptions, targets, touchdowns, yards. Cooper Kupp's been dominant, and Robert Woods is tough. Frankly, I was at that Chargers-Browns game, guys, and you could see the beginning of the end for Odell Beckham. He wasn't hustling back to the huddle after all his deep routes in which Baker did not throw the ball to him. He had a key drop on fourth down. Bucky, you can look at the tape this year. Maybe it is the ACL. That's a fair point. But I just didn't see the Odell I saw early in his career. And LeVar, he is 29 years old. I don't know how he unlocks anything that Stafford hasn't done because, I see the over-under for the Rams at 12 wins. But I actually think that's probably 12 days until Odell starts complaining. Stafford, get me the ball. Stafford, give me the rock. That's all he does. We saw it in New York. We saw it in Cleveland. LeVar, that's the big problem. Is it's going to hinder Matt Stafford, given Odell's history of petulance and I'm a star, get me the ball.
$10 word. Come on, throw the dollars in the dish. Hey, listen, I understand all of that, but I'm not willing to hang up the phone on. Man, hang up the phone, 2021. I'm not hanging up the phone. I'm a ride with Odell. I'm a ride with OBJ right now. And the reason why is because he's coming to a market where it's like getting vitamin D as a plant. It's like being somewhere that's in your natural habitat. Great white sharks cannot live in captivity. You know why? I don't know why. Maybe you do, but it's never happened. They got to be in the ocean, baby. They got to be in their natural habitat. You know where OBJ's natural habitat is? A big market. His best seasons was in the #1 media market. Now he's in a #2 media market. Throw him up and down which way. He has a home here already. He's familiar with this area.